part of me is like really enjoying this. The other
Yeah.
part of me is like, all I'm doing is sitting on the floor with my kids every day, really not doing anything, but of course. So you feel like you're just not like at that time I just felt like what am I, I don't feel like I was productive or really like
Mm,
because part of my identity too as I've gone through the years has always been about what I do,
right. Your
and
title or your
my
position.
the
Hmm.
doing aspect of
Yeah.
it, not really being so much. So I
Right.
wasn't as comfortable either
Hmm.
with just being.
Happy Friday, youth developer. Do you relate to the doing aspect? Allison asked such a great question that stayed with me. Want to share with you. When the doing ends and you're not doing that thing anymore, then who are you? Are you ready to stop striving and start thriving? Stay tuned. Welcome, Allison. So excited to have you today.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you for having me on, Patty. I'm happy to be here. It's a pleasure and an honor. Thank you. We got a lot to talk about for sure.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. So first of all, the first thing that I know in your website or when somebody says I'm a check practitioner,
Mhm.
I am like, okay, great. So what does that mean? Corrective, holistic exercise, and I never know how to pronounce this one because I'm from Peru. Please tell me how to say.
Kinesiology.
Thank you. So, all fancy words. What does it mean? What is that? What is the
Well,
certification about?
yeah, it's all about holistic health, really, ultimately. And for me, really caught my attention. I believe
Yeah.
I was watching a show called Insider Training with Gabrielle Reese years ago, and she had Paul on her show because he was training Laird and her at the time and showing them all of these techniques. And I saw that and I was like, wow, nobody's ever done that before.
Hmm.
And I really want to learn how to do that. That's how I want to train because I was pretty new to personal training at the time. I had just graduated from exercise science
Yeah.
with an exercise science degree from Georgia State University.
Yeah.
And I was really bored with what was in front of me as far as what, personal training had to offer. Like, I really have to sit here and babysit people on machines, like count their reps and record it on a chart. Like, how
Yeah.
boring is that, right?
Yeah.
And so then I found this and I was like, wow, this is how I want to train people. I want to teach
Mm.
people how to become masters of their bodies and
Oh wow.
see their potential and how far they can go instead of feeling so limited, right? Or
Mm.
feeling like it's just all about aesthetics. And so I got into that aspect of it for both myself and for my clients. And I've not looked back ever since. Of course, that brought me to looking at health more holistically as well. And soon after, I got into the nutrition and lifestyle coaching program that they offer too, and that
Yeah.
of course like opened me up to so much more as it relates to what our potential is with health and
Yeah.
with food and the quality that you're eating. So and many other things. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty much how it started for me.
Well, you were saying that you found him in a show because he was actually getting results with
Yeah,
people. And
right.
and that's when people wake up and like, oh, maybe I should listen to what he and she is doing because they're getting results in it. So, like for you and your experience, and I'm cheating here a little bit. So I'm gonna link your interview with him in the description
Okay.
somewhere in here.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, of course, sharing is caring. Because you guys talk about creativity in the fact that he had asked you, or you mentioned that he asked you to draw something and you couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And so tell me, I wanted to ask you more about that. Like what happened? Because it was like this moment in time for you where I felt like when you were sharing in your story with
Yeah.
him. Tell me about this
Yeah.
drawing art.
Yeah. Well, we're in in class. I believe it was level 3 holistic nutrition and lifestyle coaching, and and we're just sitting there, and I'm not expecting. I mean, we were asked to bring these supplies and be ready to do this, but I was not expecting I was gonna have to draw something, or it was like gonna be like art class. And for what and I was this is coming from a person who I used to love to sing, I used to love to dance, I used to
Mm.
love to I still do. I used to love art class so much, and just I loved artistic, expressing myself that way. And so as a child, it was really special to me. But then as I got older and I got really competitive with gymnastics,
Mm-hmm.
and I talk about this in my book as well. My experience with this is that
Yeah.
we kind of we get to a place of for whatever reason we want to fit in, we want to gain approval, we want to be acknowledged, we want
Mm-hmm.
to create an identity for ourselves.
Yeah.
So we put everything into that, and that becomes who we are, right? And then you just keep doing, you keep attach your attachment to this identity over time. And then something throws you get a curveball thrown at you, and then you're
Yeah.
like, what do I do? I have no idea, I don't know how to be anything else, right?
Mm.
And so I found myself in that class, sitting there looking at that piece of paper, almost having like a panic attack,
Mm.
thinking, I mean, I just felt everything closing in on me, because I was like, I don't know what to do. Nobody's telling me what to do. I don't know what to draw. Like, I need instructions.
Yeah.
And I find that lots of younger people probably find themselves in that situation these days too, because everything is kind of like told, like, okay, instructed what to do
Mm-hmm.
next. And as a gymnast, there's a lot of creativity involved in the sport itself, but for the most part you are following directions, because
Mm.
you are, it's a you're being coached, and you're
Yeah.
listening to your coach, and you're following their guidance. And so it's just kind of just being in that so much, and just being an athlete where I'm used to following guidance, and someone telling me kind of what to do next. That was where I was at
Yeah.
that time. And I had not really been able to get to a place where I could know even what I wanted to do, and because I'd just been doing what I thought I was supposed to do for so long.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So getting out of that for me was that was kind of like a come to Jesus moment for me, because I
Yeah.
was like, this isn't right. I shouldn't be
Yeah.
having this much trouble drawing something, or feeling like it needs to be a certain way, or needs to be perfect, or you know, somebody needs to tell me how to do this. I should just be able to draw something. It should be a big deal, but I just didn't know my process back then,
Mm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
so that was the beginning stages of that, and it really woke me up to my own creative process, which I think is
Mm.
important for everyone, especially after the couple years we've just been through, to connect to. And that's one of the reasons I brought it up in the show too, because that was a defining moment for me, and really set the stage for me to reconnect with my inner child that really
Mm.
was craving that connection to her creativity, that she
Mm.
had really put on the back burner for various
Mm.
reasons. And sometimes when you put your creative self on the back burner, um, you put yourself aside. You don't really, you're like, okay, we'll do Allison later, right?
Mhm,
Like,
mhm, mhm.
you know and you
Yep,
keep putting it off and putting it off,
yep.
and then finally you're like, your inner self is like, your inner child is screaming out to you like, hey, we need to pay attention now. And that's
Mhm,
when things start happening. But yeah, so it was a way for me to also, like I said, like really connect with parts of myself that were really craving that. And it was, so it just led me on a path
yeah.
to eventually write a book. And I was able to, let go of that need to make everything perfect or feel like I
Mm,
needed to be a perfectionist in some ways
mhm.
and just do it my way, which you're when you do it that way, you're creating your own path, and really no one said there is any specific way to do something or go about it. Everybody has
Right.
their own process. So that's what
Right.
I discovered in all of that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
did you end up drawing something that day, or were
I
you? Yeah, you
did.
did.
It
Ooh.
actually was, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the other part of it too, Patty, is like that was the beginning stages of me really trusting my intuition, and that inner knowing of like, oh, okay, this is what I was supposed to draw. Yes. And I look back on it, I'm like, yeah, that was, why did I even doubt that that was something that, I was like, I looked at it like, what is this, but it ended up being like, the picture that I did end up drawing ended up being a, kind of a image of the flow of energy through the body and through the chakras, and
Mm.
and I was like, I look back and I'm like, wow, that was pretty good. But at the time, I was very
Yeah.
critical of myself
Yeah.
and doubted myself in that way. So, again, like, as we grow, we are able to change our perspective and bring praise into the situation, bring love and
Mm.
compassion into the situation rather than criticizing, right?
Yeah.
And rejection.
Yeah.
So that's huge.
That's awesome. I love how yeah, the word that I was looking for when I asked you the question was like that defining moment, which is so true. I did narrow it down to that. Like I almost felt I was in the room with you, like with other people learning, like, what
Yeah.
the heck? I'm not in kindergarten. I'm not in
I'm looking around
elementary.
like everybody's getting into this, and I'm the only one that seems to be not like knowing
Yeah.
what to do. And it was like, oh my God, like I need to change my life because something's not right here.
By that time, you had your children. You have two boys. Is
I
that
have two boys.
two
Yep.
ways? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is after, right? This is just
Yeah, this
recently.
is when I
Mm-hmm.
was yeah, so my boys were pretty young then. They're now 20 and 18, but at the time they were um I don't know exactly. I think, let's see, it was about, I think 2008, 2006, somewhere around that time period.
Okay.
So I had, probably like a 7-year old and a 5-year old or something like that. Yeah, I think that was their age at the time. And yeah, I was a
Yeah.
young mom too. And that's a really hard time as well because like I took off 3 years to be a mom, and
Mm-hmm.
it was wonderful. I loved it so much.
Yeah.
And at the same time, like my identity was like, who am I right now? Like
Yeah.
I'm sitting, it's nice
Yeah.
because and really like the part of me is like really enjoying this. The other
Yeah.
part of me is like, all I'm doing is sitting on the floor with my kids every day, really not doing anything, but of course. So you feel like you're just not like at that time I just felt like what am I, I don't feel like I was productive or really like,
Mm.
because part of my identity too as I've gone through the years has always been about what I do,
Right. Your
and
title or your
my
position.
the
Mm-hmm.
doing aspect of
Yeah.
it, not really being so much. So I
Right.
wasn't as comfortable either
Mm-hmm.
with just being.
Right.
And so I find that um, now I've been able to be more comfortable with doing less. But at that
Mm-hmm.
time, I was really uncomfortable with that. But I was so tired too that it was okay.
Right. Right.
you know so it was that middle ground. So but yeah, it was hard for my identity because I'd been doing gymnastics probably from the age of like, I believe, like 5
And you
until
travel. I think that's what
21.
in your website is
Traveled.
saying. Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So it was a job in itself. I mean, practice 4 hours a day, 6 days a week. Then you have meets on the weekends during the season, and
Yeah.
most of the time you'd be traveling to a different city every weekend. And so it was, yeah, it was a lot of just. I mean, I kind of got my accolades from doing, in some ways,
Mm.
just kind of, so
Mm.
and many of
Mm-hmm.
us do get that as when we're kids,
Yeah.
when the doing ends and then you're not doing that thing anymore, then who are you? That was the question that came up for me. And I
Yeah.
had a I guess, like a midlife crisis in my 20s, which I think is also pretty normal for people.
Yeah.
A crisis of identity when I had to, retire from gymnastics. And then, then I go right into being a wife and then a mother and then a trainer. It's just kind of like all these identities, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm at this point in my life where my kids are grown. They're adults now.
Yeah.
I'm not that mom anymore.
Yeah.
Um, I'm also, like, there's just a repurposing of everything. I'm also
Different
changing
season.
careers. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. So
Mm-hmm.
it's these are the phases that we're you know that we have to honor in our lives,
Mm-hmm.
and create some kind of ceremony or rite of passage around. I believe that's really important.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned earlier too that one of the things that stopped you in a sense was the perfectionist, right? In
Yes.
going
Yeah.
into and then being able to pass that, encouraging you to write your book, which is so. Is this your first book, or is this is yeah, this is your first
It's
book?
my first book. Yeah.
Awesome. What's the name of your book again?
It's called Finally Thriving.
Finally
It's an
thriving.
your empowered guide to wellness is what the subtitle is. Yeah.
I love it.
Thank
Which
you.
we that's in there as far as my questions as well. But you said so many good things here that I want to bring attention to the doing versus the being, because in doing less, and you're right, things it does change, right? Like in our seasons. I know for me, I had something this moment on the doing versus being recently, when I had a miscarriage in 2020 January, and that was the first time that I said, whoa, I could stay away from this office. So this is my office has an entrance, my apartment's down there. And I literally did not come here when I first found out I was pregnant, which was in December. And there was a lot of joy. This is after like years. By that time, yeah, 9 years being married. Can't believe it. And it was a lot of language work that I had done.
Yeah. Right.
And I had that moment where when we found out that I had lost our baby, I was in my living room saying, okay, I basically have spent the last 5 years since like 2016 wanting to do everything to find out about this infertility, to find out about the constipation. But
Mm-hmm.
really, the question that I was trying to answer was, what's wrong with my body? Therefore,
Mm.
what's wrong with me?
Yes.
And it was so big for me because I realized that that's what I was doing. I became a nutritional therapy consultant. I opened my own company with youth programming. I decided I went from being an employee of a YMCA, to not knowing anything about nutrition or caring about it for anything, to doing all these things. And yeah, and I was very recently, a year ago, right, where it's like, okay, um just help me ask more questions. So why am I doing this? Like, and
Yeah.
to help me slow down. Right before this interview, I was like, hey, this is very important, Jimmy. I want to get my lighting. I want to do that, right? Into like, okay, what am I most excited about talking to Allison about? Writing that down, putting that in a piece of paper, because I know we've rescheduled. So
Yes.
I've gone through like, okay, I'm gonna ask her this, and then I have more to ask here. I want to know more about that. Into like, let me stop and do some yoga. Let me breathe, and so I could feel good as I'm here. So this
Yes.
whole being and doing, and especially, I hope for us, because I know we're in circles and peers of people who are creators and
Mm-hmm.
healers and want to change the world, want to impact the world, because we do forget that we because we could get so
Yes.
consumed about production, and not in the yeah, production to help, right? Like I'm doing
Yeah.
this so I can share information. I love sharing.
Right.
um and then at the same time it's like, okay, so how am I doing, right? So
Yeah.
love doing this interview so I could keep true to myself, to the bigger purpose, right? So if we want to, if I'm saying that I believe in the flight attendant, what do I mean by that? That we put the mess tightly secure in us first, then our
All
children,
right.
then our companies, then everything else. It's a hard calling,
Mm-hmm.
and we got to be reminded. And it's great to be
Yes.
in these circles and start conversations. And I, a few months ago, and I mentioned that I want to start doing things differently, just being more open, more vulnerable, and especially to our peers,
Yeah.
because we could be on the go go go, and it's like, it's a conversation. This is a conversation I'm
It
having with
is.
Allison. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
And it is true. People, like us that get into this field of serving others, you know, you get into a lot of like what everybody else needs a lot, and then you
Mm.
forget your own
Mm-hmm.
needs. And
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to so many people in this field, people in nutrition, people in training, all kinds of areas. And it's all across the board. It's like you put yourself last. It's like
Yeah.
it's a thing,
Yep.
so because we have this calling to help people,
Yep.
and that's a beautiful thing.
Yep.
And at the same time, we have to also lead by example
Yes.
and teach people also how to love themselves. Yeah,
Yes.
right. And so that's what's come to me most recently, even stronger, is that building a relationship with yourself that's
Mm.
unconditional, that's
Mm-hmm.
loving, that's and then that ultimately extends out to everybody that you come across, and much like the stuff we do in Enlifted, it's the
Mm-hmm.
same thing. Like whatever your internal dialogue is what you're going to be extending out in the external world,
Yep.
and speaking, right?
Yep.
So it's good to practice what you're
Totally.
telling yourself, like pay attention to that, right?
Yeah.
Because that's going to be what's going to inevitably come out.
Yep. Yep. My
So
my husband always knows when I'm gonna get my period. He's like, uh oh, Jenko is here. That's his name. That's his name from a period. Um, because for so long I've had irregular periods.
mm-hmm.
And so just recently, after again going back to January 2020, what it did, now I'm regular, which is such a
Oh,
blessing.
that's
It is
wonderful.
such a
Yeah.
blessing because I know when it's coming. So I already know how to honor my own schedule around Jenko.
Yeah.
I'll link the interview I did with Karan. She did how to honor your cycles,
Yes,
and
yes.
which helped me so much to understand, like, oh, okay, during this phase, this is where I should put most of my interviews, right? When it's up here versus
Yes, exactly.
when
That does
I'm
make a
like,
difference.
oh,
Yeah, totally.
yeah, yeah, and we get to, what is that? We get to own our schedule, right? We get to own it,
Yeah.
and that's why I love Calendly,
Yeah.
because I could work that out, and I knew for us, I was like, we'll make it happen, we'll make it happen, we're gonna do it. Let's talk about your book now. So it's finally thriving. I love that word,
Oh, thank
thriving,
you. Yeah.
because it takes the focus from striving, right? Because strive is like this, like,
Yes,
work you gotta do and
exactly.
read all those books and like really
Yeah.
do that, instead of like growing, evolving. That's why I see the word thrive. But talk to us about like what's in your book. What can people expect from finally thriving?
Yeah, well, Patty, you nailed it. That's pretty much what my intention was with the book, and as I've already shared I've done a lot of striving. I made a post not too long ago on Instagram about hustling. Like I've been hustling. I
Mm-hmm,
feel like I've been
mm-hmm.
hustling all my life. Um,
Same.
and it's true. So it's like
Yeah.
I'm ready to do something different, and
Yeah.
everybody's individual, like hustling's not bad, but it's
Right.
like you got to see the balance there,
Right.
right? Like if that's what you live on, if you live on being if your, busyness is like a way to kind of sidestep resolving your trauma, or facing
Exactly.
that,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be, not as healthy, right? So
And
those are
exhausting.
the things, yeah. So that was what I was realizing, that I was being busy because I was just loading myself up with busyness
Yeah.
because it felt comfortable, it felt safe,
Right.
it was what I was used to,
Right.
and it was a way for me to not feel rejected or alone. There's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of things within that I really
Mm-hmm.
that was serving me, and it served me for a time, and then it didn't serve me anymore because I just got tired, and now at this point, after I was able to heal my body nutritionally, emotionally, and of course, from a physical level, because I've had many back issues that I've been able to unwind over the years, knee stuff, old injuries from gymnastics.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I come to this point in my life where there's just something I really want to acknowledge my desires, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the only way I can do that is to stop hustling. So,
Mm.
so really, and I've talked to, if you're familiar with Roseanne Grace, she's a really good
Yeah.
friend of mine, and she's been on my show a couple of times. Integrate Yourself, and actually more than a couple of times. She's a regular guest, and
Nice.
so the last time we talked, because she's talking about the energy and how it's shifting, and the earth is shifting too. So as the earth shifts with the Schumann resonance, if you don't know what that is, your
I
listeners
don't.
can look it up.
Okay.
But it's really the frequency of the earth is being measured, I believe, either by Harvard or Stanford. I'm not sure which, but you can look it up. You'll see it. If you just look up Schumann resonance online, and it'll tell you where we're at with it. And it's steadily rising, and it's been rising pretty quickly ever since the pandemic and everything we've been going through. So, with that, we are also in tune with the earth. And so we change our body, our frequency and our energy body and our physical body to match that, to stay up with it. So so we are also feeling it from an energetic standpoint, from an emotional component. There's emotions that are coming up that we're needing to resolve and move through much more intensely these days. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I've certainly noticed it in my life. And like things that are just coming up and they need to be moved through, right? And it's
Totally.
great because it's resolving a lot,
Yeah.
so that you can let go of those attachments of things that you're hanging on to, and
Mm.
that are keeping you limited, right? And your beliefs and your potential. So I say all that because we are heading into a time where striving used to work, hustling used to really work well, right? With what we were doing, it's not
Especially in
working
the
that well
80s.
anymore. Yeah, yeah. So we're moving into more of a time where
Yeah.
we're learning how to allow and surrender to
Mm.
receive instead of hustling and striving to receive, right?
Mm.
So that so I bring that up because of the energy that's changing. Like
Mm.
um, so I'm seeing that, I'm feeling that more often, and it's getting easier really to surrender to receive. So
Mm.
there is I can't think of I can't think of the word now. It just skipped my mind. It
Oh,
is
come.
just I say to myself over and over again, I surrender, I receive, right?
Mm. Mm. What do
And the
you
word,
mean by
the word
race?
because we use it in class. can't remember right now. It'll come to me. I don't know why. My mind just had a brain fart. But
It
anyway,
happens.
I know.
Hmm.
So yeah, that happens more often these days. But so yeah, so that's where I'm at. I'm just like so the striving for me and the hustling for me, it symbolizes more of attachment in some ways to my old way of doing things, right?
Mm.
And so I'm letting go of that. But again, it's there, you can it's not that you don't want, to work, like it's not that you don't want to do anything or work to learn a new skill or anything. That's still on the
Sure.
table. It's just like
Sure.
you're moving more towards things that you would enjoy, that you desire,
Yep.
that really light you up. Those are going to
Yep.
be, those require less work and more joy
Yep.
in the process, so you enjoy it more. And so we don't have to do things we don't enjoy as much just to make
Yep.
money. We can actually start moving toward things we really love, right?
Yes.
That's really good news. And so my
Yes.
book is all about um, approaching health from that standpoint. So we're approaching it through aligning the mind, learning the skills to align your mind, which is, again, like it's not a struggle. There's a lot of easy things you can do and practice every day to begin to align your mind and your focus to bring you into more of what you want to create in your life, right? To get
Yep.
you more clear on that.
Yep.
We're using our imagination as well. I talk about
Mm-hmm.
imagination and how that is so important to develop that kind of muscle so that you are able to, you know, dream your potential, or you can just
Yes.
actually surrender to, something to it all and just say, hey, what's in my highest and greatest good here?
Mm.
Please surprise me, I mean,
Mm.
then, but I think also it's fun to use imagination. And again, tapping into our creative expression is a way to do that as well.
Yep.
So those are all really important components of aligning the mind. Then we connect with our body, practical skills through breathing, through
Mm-hmm.
the right nutrition, the right, good water,
Mm.
exercise, and looking at how we can connect with our body on a both energetic and physical level and bring those two together, really integrate the two.
Yep.
And instead of separating them out, which we've done in the past so much more.
Yeah.
And then the final phase in my book is about listening to your spirit. How do you listen to your spirit? How do you know, how to connect with your intuition? How do you know how to what your energy feels like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I teach you. Um, I mean, it takes you on a journey more so than teaching,
Nice.
but it's just like,
Right.
it's very enjoyable to read. And my hope is that everybody really gets their own unique experience out of this and learns
Mm-hmm.
more about themselves and maybe how they want to creatively express themselves or take it to, because health is, I don't know about you, Patty, but health sometimes is framed as really boring, like you got
Mm.
to eat
Or
this really
hard. Very hard.
boring food, or it's
Restricted.
suffering,
Mm-hmm.
restrictive, right?
Yep.
I don't believe that it has to be that way. Of course, anything you do might be a little hard in the beginning because we're learning new skills.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, it really should be fun. It really should be joyful. Negation acknowledged.
Mm-hmm.
Because,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
is that a negation? No, that's sorry.
More like
That's
a pressure
yeah. Like
language.
it
Mm-hmm.
should. It should.
Yeah.
No, but it
Yeah.
it, it can. Let's
Yep.
put it that way. It
Yep.
can be.
Yep.
Um, it can be fun. It can be joyful. There is
Yeah.
a side of health that can be that way. And you can
Yep.
enjoy food. You
Yep.
don't. It doesn't have to be hard unless you just really want it to be that way. But so that's
Exactly.
so
So
that's what I
true.
share with people in the book is like, how can you bring, that aspect of relaxation, joy, fun, because that is a big component of health too.
Yep. Yep.
And if we're not feeling that, then something needs to be reassessed, because that should always be should always. Um,
You're good.
it,
Right? It
it can
happens, man.
always be,
Yeah.
it can always be an option, right? I always look at that though as a little bit of a red flag to like look at what you're doing, what your program is doing, what you're
Mhm.
doing with your program as it relates to health. If it feels too restrictive, if it's not fun,
Yeah.
because this is something that you're gonna be doing for the rest of your life, right?
Yes. Yeah. I know for me, when I first got my certification, I felt like I was hiding and no, what's that? The imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Because I grew up not liking the kitchen nor cooking. And how can I be a nutritional therapy consultant if I hate cooking? Right? Shh, I'm not gonna say anything. Right? I'll post
Right.
stuff here, but like I hate going in that kitchen. And then the more and more I was open to it, it was like, okay, not every nutritional therapy consultant needs to love cooking. My thing
Right.
is teaching. My thing is interview. My thing is community and classes. That's my jam, right? It's okay
Exactly.
not to, because I could work with other people, my peers, right, that love it. Like my friend
Exactly.
Jennifer, she has a great book and I recommend people there. Go to
Exactly.
her website. Or I'll post my husband. I mean, it's out there in my YouTube channel. He's right now he's cooking. I can smell it. It smells amazing. He loves cooking. He grew up with the
Yeah.
dad, an Italian dad that loved to throw the towel and cook for mom
Oh,
and him,
wonderful. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's so true. Like we gotta find, going back to what you said earlier about, like our passion, why superstars, we call it our spark, right?
Yeah.
And just I don't know if you know, so like the name of my company is Why Superstars. It's a question. Why superstar? The answer is because
Ah,
you are. We believe that we will all have unique strength, God given potential to contribute to humanity, to this world, right? Unique
yes.
to that person. And so, like you said, when we focus more like on weaknesses rather than what gives us passion and energy, we have more fun doing it versus, oh, it's so boring, or man,
Right.
I should, right? Going back to your
Right.
to the should
Yeah. Yeah.
statements.
Yeah.
So it's like how much more fun it's your life, and how does fun influence everything else?
Yeah.
Right?
Because fun always for some reason, fun gets put on the back burner a lot. Um,
Yes.
and I just think that's, you know, it's a mistake to do that
Yeah.
because, like, when are you going to allow yourself to play,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
play can be it can be integrated in many ways throughout your life. It doesn't have to be like you're totally, you know, messing around and not doing anything or getting anything done. It can
Yeah.
really integrate into anything you do in your life.
Yeah.
Um, you could do, like talk about cooking. You can do improv. You can just do an improv dance
Exactly.
session while you're cooking. There's just a lot of
Exactly.
ways to
Yeah.
do things. Same with like teaching nutrition. You can take different approaches to that. Doesn't always have to be about cooking.
Right.
It can be about like, let me teach you how to
How the body works.
get your digestion on track, right? I mean,
Hmm.
you can write a whole book just on that, right? I mean,
Exactly.
that's a big topic. So, and that could be even, you could even take it into talking about how you breathe,
Hmm.
talk about how you talk, because
Right.
people are talking really fast, they're not breathing properly. So
Oh,
yeah,
so guilty of that.
right? I do that too.
Hmm.
But it's like, but hiding, I think also another aspect to hiding is, um, this is from my personal standpoint, is we are uncomfortable being seen and heard. There's a level of exposure there that we're uncomfortable with.
Vulnerability.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
exactly.
Lack of vulnerability.
So,
Hmm.
yeah. So, if you want to also help people with all their autonomic nervous system responses, which are
Mm.
all tied to feeling seen and heard and
Mm.
acknowledged and, uh, you know, exposed for who you like. If you're hiding who you are all the time, that's very stressful.
Totally.
So if you really want to help people too, another aspect of that is to teach them how to downregulate their nervous system, and then they're able then to become aware of those other things that they
Yeah.
could be approaching to ultimately heal themselves and how they respond to the world, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is, there's so many levels. There's so many levels, but the surface stuff for people most of the time is like the food.
Hmm.
There's just the basics. You get through the
Hmm.
basics and then you can start working from there. But again, if you help people start to downregulate their nervous system, I think you can do a lot with that, right?
Yeah, I mean, digestion starts in the brain, right? The brain
Yeah,
telling your body enzymes get ready. We're gonna break that down, right? Most people believe
absolutely.
that it starts here and it starts here. That's what drew me to Nutritional Therapy Association. That was like the first what
Yeah,
aha moment,
right.
right? Because I was primal. I'm sure you heard Mark Sisson, right? My husband and
Oh yeah.
I like totally changed our diet, and we were like so hardcore and strict and not fun.
No, I've
we
been
were
there.
we were
Yeah.
not popular during the holidays, right? Not at all. Don't give them
Right?
rice or
Nobody wants to
bread.
come to your
No.
house for the
So what I
holidays.
did, I started hosting in my house.
Yeah.
However, I was realizing how, we're both type A personality anyway, at the end of the day. As much as he wants to call himself a hippie, he's totally type A personality. We started to realize that we were approaching it differently. Where
Yeah.
as in the past 2 years, we've swung the other way after the pandemic with bread, rice,
Yeah.
absolutely everything. And now it's like, okay, now we're finding our way. And
Yeah.
you know
That's
what,
what you got to do.
Allison,
Yeah.
that's gonna be part of our journey. We're gonna continue to evolve.
Yeah.
And I love that, so and I like what you said about your book. It's not like so much what they will learn, but like you're, in a sense, what I'm hearing is you're gonna guide through questioning and reflection and
Exactly.
information.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's an experience. Yeah,
Yeah.
I really wanted to give people an experience more than
Mm,
just telling them what to do, because I
yes.
want them to know themselves, like understand themselves and get to know themselves, and have that kind of experience of themselves. And even like we're talking about earlier, the icing on the cake is like, how would you like to creatively express yourself right now?
Mm, mm-hmm.
Um, that's huge
Yeah.
because rarely do we allow ourselves to do that. Like we
Mm-hmm.
always think, okay, it should be only artists are allowed to do that,
Yeah.
or musicians or people who are,
Exactly.
but that's not true. No,
Exactly.
everybody can do that. We can do that, and it just it gives you it kind of well, not kind of, but it definitely gives you a more indirect route to healing yourself, you
It
know?
does. Thank you for saying that. I mean, part of what we ask is who defines the definition of a superstar? I hope it's you. I hope it's you, listener, as well. I hope you define that, right? You get to
Yes.
create that. And that's part of what we do. That's part of why superstars and in the community that we're building. I was saying before, I'm trying, and you know what happens? It kept me in that loop. I am developing. We do have a platform. I am part of many communities and networks with line mine like what is it? Mine like no
Like-minded?
like-minded people. Yes, look at, I'm like getting chills as you're
Yeah.
saying certain things. I'm like, exactly. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yes.
Yes.
I am very grateful. Thank you so much for your time, for coming and sharing from your story in nutrition with Check, Paul, and then to your book. I know for me, the thing that stands out from our conversation started with that defining moment at
Yeah.
with Paul Check asking you to draw something that
Right.
that goes from like all these identities, as you were talking about, that we put give ourselves, and all the things we need to do to transitioning to being, to working out our spark, to
Yeah.
creativity.
Right.
Walt Disney, I got to look for that quote. I will definitely put it in the description. He has a really good quote on imagination and children. I don't, I will be paraphrasing. It's along the ways that, knowledge is good, imagination is way better.
Oh yeah. I
And
think also Albert Einstein
yes,
said
him
something
too.
like that. Imagination is more important than intelligence, I believe.
Yeah,
I
I
think
might
they
be
had.
confusing the two because those two I love. You know, like
Yeah, it's really interesting too. What comes to mind when you're saying that too, Patty, is like when we're kids, we're trying on different identities. We're not attaching to any of them. We could do that as also as adults, you know.
we're not attached. That's a good
Why are
word.
we attaching to our identities so much as
Hmm.
adults? Like we're
Yeah,
taking them way too seriously.
totally.
So and again, like at least some of them, yes, I mean, I'm not saying not be sincere about what you're doing for a living and stuff, and
Right.
make sure that you're responsible and stuff, but
Yeah.
at the same time, like could we play around with that a bit, and
Yeah.
try different ones on, and like not attach so much like we did when we were, I mean, like we didn't do that when we were kids as much. Of course, we didn't have to, we didn't have the same responsibilities, obviously, but you could have that same perception as an adult, as not attaching too much to who you make yourself
Yeah.
uh, out to be and how other people see you. You know what I'm saying? So that's a way to look at it too.
Yeah, I constantly remind myself that it's the meaning that we give those stories.
Yes.
Because I used to journal often since I've been journaling since I was 21. I'm 44. And so it's been a long, but it was more of a diary. Like today I did this and then I want to do that.
Mm.
And it was more about documenting almost in a sense. And so I'm transitioning to this new way of journaling about, so to keep myself asking why. So what about that? And what does that get me mad? Okay. So how does,
Yeah.
and go more in depth instead of just brain dumping, because there's a difference
Yeah.
between journaling, brain dumping. There's so many
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'm learning, I'm evolving in asking myself, what does that mean? Okay, so why am I saying this is very important? I'm gonna go
Yeah.
back to that because that was me before coming into my office, right? Because I
Yeah.
couldn't find my light, because I couldn't get this, and the camera that I wanted to use was not available. I'm missing this cable, and I
Yeah.
was making it a big deal on that, and it was like, what's most important is my conversation. It's my conversation with
Yeah. It's
Allison,
coming in
right?
as you are, right? It's
Exactly.
you. Yeah,
It's right
exactly.
there, right? Because you are.
Yeah.
It's right. It's on my shirt. I need to look at my shirt.
That's
Yeah.
right.
That's what we gotta do. Accountability. I'm telling you, this is a very high calling. So,
Yeah, I love it.
Allison, thank you. Say hi to your husband, your
I
two
will.
kids. Give Portland a hug for me
I
because
will.
I love the West Coast.
Yeah, thanks, Patty. It's such
Yeah.
a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Allison.